Hello again. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another live stream with me, Lara Ryan from Complete Test Success. So today we're looking at academic IELTS writing task 1. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share a question with you, and together we will write the essay. So I'll get you to write the various parts of the essay and share it with me in the comments, and I'll give you feedback. I'll let you know what mistakes you're making. And by pointing out your mistakes, that will allow you to improve your scores, because you know what problems you have, you fix those problems, your scores improve. It's as simple as that. For a lot of students, for example, if you've been watching my lessons on YouTube, perhaps you know what to do, but you might be making mistakes when you try to implement that, and you don't know that you're making those mistakes. So it's very important to get feedback so that you understand what you're doing wrong, and that allows you to improve your scores. So that's pretty much what we're doing today. I'll get you to do some writing for me, and I'll give you feedback. Some girl without a mustache. Hello, welcome to the lesson. All right. So as with every task 1 question, we're going to begin by writing the paraphrase. So let me share the question with you guys here. All right. So this is the question. And to paraphrase the question, you're taking that text up here at the top. Let me try that again. So this one says, the diagram below shows the various stages involved in the carbon cycles. It's a spelling mistake on my end. In the carbon cycle. Okay, so that's what I want you to do. Paraphrase that question. Share your paraphrase with me in the comments, and then I'll have feedback for you. I'll let you know if you're doing anything wrong, and that will allow you to improve your score. Hi, Hung. Welcome to the lesson. Hi, Adil. Good to see you here again. Yusuf, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys get on with that. Write the paraphrase, share it with me, and I will have feedback for you then. So as well as that, if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, first paraphrase from office work. The given picture demonstrate a range of levels involved in the carbon cycle. So you need a full stop at the end. So the language, there's a language mistake there, and the word levels isn't right. So levels would be more things that go on top of one another. So let me just show you how we can fix that. Okay, so I'm going to just take that text that you've written and add it here. Let me just get everything on screen here together. Okay. So you're trying to change the word by using the word level. You're trying to avoid using the word stage. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Let's just try and use the correct language. So demonstrates isn't quite right. So to demonstrate is more to show you how something works. So for example, if I was to show you how this pen works, I can twist the bit at the end, and by doing that, I'll show you how that you get, how you get the nib to come out the top of the pen. So I'll do it first so that you can see how to do it. That's demonstrate. That's also show. So in this context, show and demonstrate has the same meaning, but in the context of the diagram showing you, it's not the same. So that's not how we use that word. So we could say illustrates. So the given picture illustrates a range of stages. It's not a range of stages either, really. It's just this stages involved in the carbon cycle. And like I said, we need that full stop at the end. Picture, I feel like image would be more accurate. Picture, it's not necessarily a photograph, but it would be closer to that, whereas image is I think more appropriate. So I've changed a little bit, and it's just about the accuracy of the vocab. Very, very, very often students will try desperately not to use the language from the vocab, and then it becomes they'll try desperately not to use the language from the question, and then it becomes unclear or inaccurate. So, if you need to copy the word stages from the question, it's fine. It's fine for you to do that. Don't go too far trying to change everything. Okay, so Hung says the illustration depicts the stages in which CO2 undergoes. No, so it would just be the stages that, well, it's the carbon cycle. So I think we need to use the phrase carbon cycle. So let's just say the illustration depicts the stages in the carbon cycle. I think that's the clearest way to do it. Okay, so that's good. We have a paraphrase, and the next thing we need to do is to write the overview. So again, I'm going to let you guys, take your time, write the overview, share it with me in the comments, and then we will continue from there. And yeah, so that's the next task. Write the overview and share it with me. Okay, I have another comment here from Adil. Sir, I have a question. If the IELTS writing task rubric is why online libraries are better than traditional ones, and my ideas are that the benefit of online libraries can save time and money. If for saving time, I write that you do not need to travel and people can access book from homes as development. And for saving money, I write that we do not need to travel, cutting down transportation costs. Will the same development for both ideas affect my score? Yeah, so it's essentially two aspects of the same idea. If you have repetitive ideas, you can get a band 4. So basically what you're saying is you don't have to travel to the library, and that will save money and time. So no, you can't really use not traveling as two ideas. Hi, Aziz Beck. Welcome to the lesson. XIX, good to see you. You're saying, I'm not attending this session. I am attending this session on my mobile phone, so I cannot participate much. No problem at all. Always good to have you here. Good to have you here, XIX. Hi, Prince Naheen. Welcome to the lesson. Okay, so we have our first overview here from Office Work. Overall, the 7 stages of the carbon cycle. The 7 stages of the carbon cycle begins with the absorption of carbon by the trees in the atmosphere. Oh, so it would be the carbon in the atmosphere by the trees, and ends with emissions from transportation and industries being released back into the air. Okay. We want to keep it as vague as possible. So rather than saying emissions from transportation and industries, let's just say and ends with CO2 being released back into the air. Try and keep it more general. If we include specific details, the examiner can bring us down to a band 5. Now, with a process question, it's more difficult not to include specific points because, what else are you going to talk about? So we're trying to speak more generally about the types of stages and the types of things happening. But saying where it starts and ends is acceptable, but we don't want to be too specific. If we're being too specific, the problem then is we could potentially be giving a reason for the examiner to give us a band 5. So instead of saying emissions from transportation and industries, let's leave that for the body paragraphs and just say more generally. Overall, the cycle of carbon dioxide involves an overground process, which includes plants, cattle, factories, and vehicles, and an underground process of decomposing dead organisms and waste. That again would be too specific. So what I'm going to do, I see the spelling correction here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the one that Office Work had and use that because it's a better foundation. There isn't as much specific information. Okay. So we'll just add that. I like to put the overview in the same paragraph as the paraphrase. It doesn't have to. So I'm going to say this. The carbon cycle has a total of 7 stages and begins with the absorption of carbon dioxide by trees into the atmosphere. So let's say the absorption of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into trees and ends with emissions, and let's say and ends with carbon dioxide being released back into the atmosphere, with carbon dioxide being released back into the atmosphere. Now we've already used atmosphere, so I'm just going to say air, back into the air this time. Okay, I like it. That's good. So that's certainly a good start. We've got our paraphrase and our overview, and from there we need to write the body paragraphs or the details paragraphs. So that's what I'd like you to do next. So what you'll note there, Office Work has just noted that the first stage is the absorption of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into the trees. So this bit here is what we've called the first step in our overview. So in our body paragraphs, this will also be counted as our first step. So start from here and, bring it around as far as you think is reasonable. Okay, so that is my next task for you guys there. So when you're ready, share your body paragraph, your details paragraph with me in the comments. Prince Naheen is asking how to get a high score in grammar for writing. Well, it's simply about range and accuracy. It's not about using like every grammar tense that exists, but using the correct grammar tense for the correct situation, using a range of complex structures. So, you're not just using the same complex structure. You don't have mainly simple sentence structures, that you are using complex structures and a range of them, and you're using all of the language accurately. So it's basically range and accuracy. A combination of those things is what determines your grammar score. Okay, Office Work, that's fine. Good evening, dear sir. Hi, Mandeep. Good to see you here. Decomposing, we saw that already. Yusuf, I have no idea what we're doing here. We're writing a task 1 academic essay. Should I write a paragraph? Yes. So what we're doing now is we are writing the body paragraph. So you can see the instruction here at the bottom. Write the body paragraph and share it with me in the comments. Just some girl without a mustache. Overall, the carbon cycle that involves both atmosphere and soil. So let's say overall the carbon cycle takes place in both the atmosphere and the ground. I like that. I'm going to add that information we can add to what we have. It starts with the absorption of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and ends with it being released there as the same, released back into the atmosphere as the same gas. Okay, so we said it involves both atmosphere and soil. Let's add that as a bit of extra information, just to make sure that the examiner isn't going to give us a band 6 and say that it's a bit short. If we have something extra to say, it's a good idea to add it. So process takes place in the atmosphere and the ground, like that. So we've already spoken about the atmosphere here. So maybe I want to put that up here. So the carbon cycle has a total of 7 stages and takes place in the atmosphere and in the ground. And we'll say it begins with that. So there we go. I think that's an improvement, just to make sure our overview covers enough information that the examiner isn't going to give us a band 6 instead of a band 7. Okay, so that was good. Mandeep, overall, it is a natural 7-stage process which begins with good. So we can say that it's natural. I'll add that there now as well. The carbon cycle is a natural process with a total of 7 stages and takes place in the atmosphere and in the ground. Good. Yeah. So anything else that we can add, any other kind of general descriptions we can include, it's good. I mean, you don't want to go to the extreme. You know, we don't want to write, you know, a big long paragraph. But anything you can think of saying, you should include, as long as you're not including specific points and as long as it's accurate, you know. So in general, I tell my students, aim for about 30 words in their paragraph, aim for about 30 words in the overview. And that's just a general guideline. It's not strict, but I think just as a general guide to follow, if you're not sure, like, you know, is it long enough? Is it too long? Is it too short? As a general guideline, that's a good idea. Hi, Ramesh. Part 1, I'm not sure what you're asking me there. The carbon cycle begins when live organisms such as trees. I wouldn't. When living organisms such as trees inhale carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. You know, it doesn't say anything about the cows, the carbon dioxide going into the cows in the diagram. I think that's true, but you don't want to include irrelevant information. So the only information you put in your essay is the information that comes from the diagram. So, you know, like CO2 is inhaled by cows, but the diagram doesn't show that. So we wouldn't include anything that's not there. So be careful you're not including irrelevant information. Later, these trees become fossils, which are used for a range of purposes. No, that's too specific. In general, we won't talk about the specific stages in the middle of the process. You know, we can say where it starts and ends, but even when we're doing that, try to do it in a general way. Mandeep, overall, it is a natural 7-stage process, so you need a comma after natural, and 7-stage is hyphenated, 7-stage without an S on stages. So overall, it is a natural, comma, 7-stage process, which begins with the absorption of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into trees, just trees in general, and ends with carbon dioxide being released. It has to be passive, being released back into the air. Good. Yusuf, our main source of nutrition, which plant depends on CO2 that naturally happens in the atmosphere. This is unclear, but it also seems like you're talking about irrelevant stuff. It doesn't say anything about nutrition in the diagram. And then which plant depends on CO2 that naturally happens in the atmosphere. That language, the grammar structure you're using here, you need to focus, like, what is the subject of that sentence and what is the verb in that sentence. So it's like you have too many pieces going on in the same sentence, so it's not clear. Plants make use of this gas by photosynthesis process that has a crucial byproduct that we breathe. No. So you're through our lungs. No. So you're just kind of writing about stuff you know rather than describing what you see in the diagram, and that is not going to help you get a high score. And dear sir, I'm attending this class on my mobile phone, so it's difficult for me to see the proper stages. Yeah, so two things you can do. Like, one is turn your phone sideways so that you get it full screen. And then, like when I have other stuff up on top, that's blocking it. So you might need to pause it while you're writing the paragraph. Hi, Wang. Good to see you here. Overall, there are multiple stages in the cycle. Okay, so multiple stages is too vague. We need to actually say what we see. Sometimes the diagram will have the number written on it, so you're just following, like, the diagram says 5, so you say 5. This one doesn't, so you kind of have to count it and decide what you think, the number that you think. But just saying multiple stages is too vague. Every process will have multiple stages, so we want to be a bit more specific. And of course, we're not including specific information from the diagram, but that number has to be specific. So let's say we'll say overall there are 7 stages in the cycle of carbon. We don't call it the cycle of carbon. We just call it the carbon cycle. So you need to keep that phrase. Starting with photosynthesis from plants, photosynthesis in plants, and ending with CO2. And again, we mentioned this, it must be passive, with CO2 being released by plants, animal respiration, fossils, and other human activities. This is too specific. This is going to bring you down to a band 5, including too much specific detail. Including specific detail at all is bad for your task achievement score. So no specific detail like that in the overview. So when you mention plants, animal respiration, fossils, other human activities such as transportation, factory emissions, definitely you're getting a band 5 for that overview. And plants photosynthesize to absorb CO2 to grow. No. Like I said earlier, you can't include irrelevant information. And irrelevant information will be stuff that you know, but stuff that you know about the process that didn't come from the diagram. That's not okay. So what you include can only be what you see here. Once these plants die, they combine with waste. Once they die, okay, that's fine, because dead organisms like that was there. Oh, excuse me. They combine with waste from cattle and are deposited to the underground. So deposited would be more like somebody put them there. So deposit wouldn't be the right word either. And then just deposited underground, but it wouldn't be deposited. They just, they get there and just above fossils and fossil fuels. And again, that's not really clear. And Hung, your language ability is much higher than what you're performing at here. So I don't know if you're trying to write quickly or if you're trying to use language you're not comfortable with. But generally speaking, your language ability is far beyond what you're producing here. So just try and keep it simple and try and be as clear as possible. Okay, B. Winkle, the first stage involves the inhalation of carbon dioxide by trees. No. So to inhale is what people do. So just use the language. You're trying not to use the vocab in the diagram, but there's nothing wrong with using that vocab. By the trees. Then remains of trees and animals turn into fossils, which are used as a fuel by transportation and industries. These transportation then release the carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere in the form of emissions. So yes, but you're covering too many things. So is that the only thing you're going to say? Is that the end of our essay? It's going to be very short. So if we put what you've written here into our essay, then it's finished. We're aiming for about 180 words, and you've basically just run through the whole way from start to end. Dead organisms and waste products. You said fossils. So you kind of jumped over that bit. Root respiration. So there are a few bits you haven't mentioned, but not much. Organic carbon. I don't think you mentioned that one. So I think at the moment, the problem is that you're covering pretty much the full cycle. And then there are a few small bits missing that wouldn't really be, it wouldn't be suitable to write about them in the next paragraph because they're kind of at random places. So what we want to do is just describe about the first half in one paragraph, have it somewhere about 50, 60 words long. And then again, the same idea again in the next paragraph, describing the second half. Okay, carbon dioxide present in the air is absorbed by trees. When they decay in the soil, so I would still use the word photosynthesis in your answer. When they decay in the soil, their organic material turns into fossil fuels. These fossil fuels are in turn used by human beings to okay, so far this is good. Plants undergo a process called photosynthesis to absorb CO2. Good. So maybe CO2 from the air, from the atmosphere, something like that. Once these trees die, their remains are buried underground. So again, buried would be an active thing where someone comes along with a shovel and puts them under the ground. So that's not what's happening either. So that wouldn't be right. It needs to be accurate. What we say needs to be accurate. Mandeep, dear sir, in order to get higher bands in IELTS writing in both tasks, should I write more and more essays or just work on my key mistakes? It depends where you are. Like, are you trying to get faster? Like, let's say, for example, you need a band 7 and you're currently at a band 6.5. You need to know, why are you at a 6.5? Is it your task achievement score? Is it your coherence and cohesion? Are you making cohesive device mistakes? Is it that your range of vocab isn't good enough? Is it that you're making too many grammar mistakes? So yeah, working on your key mistakes will be important to bring you up to a 7. And then after that, writing essays to make sure that you can consistently write at that standard within the time limit. So it depends where you are. If your problem at the moment is you're making too many grammar mistakes, well, you need to study grammar first before you start writing essays. So it just depends. It depends, what issues you have. Some part of the image was not visible, hence I skipped the part below Earth's surface. Yeah, okay. Mandeep, dear sir, are both writing tasks important in order to get higher bands? Because most people say the task 1 is less important. No, it's not less important. So task 1 is worth 1/3 of your score, and task 2 is worth 2/3 of your score. But a low task 1 score can still bring you down and stop you getting the score you need. So absolutely, task 1 is very important. And if you want a band 7 in your IELTS writing test, getting a 7 in task 1 and a 7 in task 2, that's the most effective way of doing that. Okay, so far, I think the best response we saw was from can't find it there now. This student here on YouTube. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to write over this so we can see what we're looking at. Carbon dioxide present in the air, it's absorbed by trees through the process of photosynthesis. synthesis. When the trees die, so maybe after, I suppose, would be better. After the trees die, they decay in the soil. And this organic material turns into fossil fuels, and it's organic material. I'm gonna use the language, and these dead organisms, along with dead animals, such as cows, so along with animals such as cows and waste products turn into fossil fuels, turn into fossils and fossil fuels. So the changes that I'm making here is I just want to make sure that we're not missing anything. So like this arrow here, I made a change to include that. You said just the trees, but it's dead organisms and waste products. And you said fossil fuel, but it says fossils and fossil fuel. So the changes that I'm making are basically going back to include any of the stuff that you kind of overlooked in that description. I know you said that you weren't finished, and you made a note there to say that you were continuing, but these fossils are in turn used by human beings. So what it looks like is that you're now up here, right? So the changes I've made means that we have covered this, and all of this. And now we can talk about the other stuff. And also, I think it's kind of a good place to change, maybe write about the next paragraph, because if you look what we're doing so far, like everything that we've mentioned, hang on now, let me just see what I'm say here. So in this part of the text that I have on the screen, so in this part of the text here, we've described from here and basically everything moving downwards. So the downward arrows and what's at the bottom. And then everything else is basically the arrows going up. So arrows up, arrows going up, arrows going up, arrows going up. So it kind of makes sense that this description is about the arrows going down, and then the next description can be about all the arrows going up. So it seems like a logical place to stop and write another paragraph. So yeah, those extra pieces of information I think are necessary. Okay. The first stage involves the inhalation of carbon dioxide by trees. So we don't use that phrase inhalation with trees. We would use it more with animals. Then remains of trees and animals are buried. So again, we talked about that with hung. Buried isn't suitable. That's not what's happening. Buried is more of an active process, an active activity beneath the surface of the earth. The buried remains turn into fossil fuels. Good. But what are those remains? So we have dead organisms and waste products. So in this part of the essay, the goal is to describe exactly what's happening in the process. So we don't want to just give a general description. The general description is in the overview, but now we're writing the body paragraphs and it needs to be specific, exactly what's happening, exactly what things are involved. And don't be afraid to use the language from the diagram. In all likelihood, you're not going to know other words for animal respiration. So just use the phrase animal respiration, and the same for all the different labels on the diagram. So don't worry about avoiding that language. You very likely need it. Okay, CO2 is absorbed by trees for some organic materials such as trees, cattle, bodies of other living organisms decay underground, creating a pool of carbon deep. Okay, good. So we had that already in the form of fossil fuels. Now remember, in the diagram it says fossils and fossil fuels, so don't avoid that. Energy to run vehicles and industries. Okay, so that looks like a continuation of where we were already. So I'm going to take that there. Okay, so let me just add that to what we have in the document already. Okay, just give me a second now. Try to get everything on screen at the same time. We're a bit tight for space here. Okay, so just want to get paragraph 1 kind of out of the way a little bit for now so that we can focus more on the next one. Okay. These fossil fuels are in turn, so that'll need to be in commas. Okay, so these fossil fuels are in turn used by human beings to harness energy to run vehicles and industries. Carbon dioxide is again present in the emissions that are released by the objects that burn fossil fuels. So there isn't a clear connection between, this sentence, you're talking about vehicles and industries and the objects that burn fossil fuels. It's not obvious that we're talking about the same thing. So carbon dioxide is again present in the emissions. So let's say carbon dioxide is then released in the emissions from the burning of these fossil fuels in vehicles and industries. Now that might not be great either, so give me a minute just to reread that. These fossil fuels are in turn used by human beings to harness energy to run vehicles and from which, let's put it all in the same sentence. Carbon dioxide is then released in the emissions from burning these fossil fuels. And then we don't need that. Okay. In addition, the carbon pool, where is that now? In the atmosphere is also contribute. Oh no, the carbon dioxide. In addition, the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in addition, let's say more carbon dioxide is added to the atmosphere from the exhalation from, let's just use the language from animal respiration, and it doesn't say anything about the roots of the trees. Oh, it doesn't say roots. Okay, let's just use the language. Root respiration and organic carbon. Okay, now we've included everything. Okay, So let me take what we've written here and add it to the paraphrase and overview we had already. Try and get it all on the same, get it on all on the screen at the same time. Okay, I think that's about the best I can do in terms of space. Now, what I was talking about earlier on is that we don't want to just describe everything very quickly and end up with a short essay. You'll see this essay isn't really very long. It's still quite short. This is quite common with process questions where the essays will be shorter than with other question types in task 1. So typically speaking, if you write about a graph and the essay is this short, that would normally mean you have forgotten something important. Or if you're writing about a map, you've probably, left out something, or you could have been more descriptive. Maybe you didn't include the locations as clearly as you could have. But for process questions, if they're a bit shorter than normal, that's kind of to be expected. But we don't want to go too far. We don't want to hand in, like a 100-word essay. That's going to be a problem as well. Office work volume is not coming on YouTube. I'm not sure why that's happening. Hopefully it's just an issue on your end, because I don't know how to fix it here. I'm not getting any warnings with poor internet or anything like that, so I'm not sure why that is. Thank you for your guidance. You're very welcome. Good job. You've done some really good writing there today as well. Really helps you. Good, Ramesh. Wang, on the other hand, carbon is also released back into the atmosphere in different ways. One of them is when animals and plants respire. Okay. And another is when humans burn fossil fuels through activities such as, maybe driving cars or, running cars. But cars isn't an activity. So cars and factories aren't examples of activities. So maybe such as running cars and factories, something like that. All this carbon. So you don't need the verb is. The verb in this sentence is enters. So all this carbon then enters the atmosphere again and reabsorbed by plants, and this cycle continues. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. So that's a very important part. In the essay that I have put on the screen, what we didn't draw attention to is that last arrow there. So that's very important. I'm glad that you mentioned that one, because we didn't, and that would be a mistake. So what did you say there? This cycle continues. The carbon then. Okay, so let me just copy that and I'll add it to the document we have. Okay, very glad you mentioned that. Okay, so okay, carbon dioxide after this, carbon dioxide is once more absorbed by plants, and this cycle maybe repeats itself. Good. Great. Thank you, Juan. Okay. So again, there's our essay. And just try and get everything on screen. if you've been following me for a while, you'll realize, or you'll already know, that trying to get everything on the screen at the same time for task 1 is a bit of a struggle for me. Volume is fine. Great. Thanks, XIX. Hung, is it okay to mention the total number of steps, then the first and last steps for the overview? Yeah, definitely, 100%. What about organic carbon? Yeah, we've mentioned that already. That has been, I added that somewhere. Organic carbon. There it is. So yeah, that's already been mentioned. Okay, so that's pretty much all we have to do today. We've written a full essay. It's a strong essay. The language is accurate. We've got a good range of grammar in there. So this is, the essay that we're looking at in front of us would definitely get a high score. Right. So that's it for today. Take care of yourselves. See you next week. Bye.